Sometimes we believe we can leave the past behind, that a new year means a fresh start, a clean slate. We attend parties, raise our glasses, smile at strangers, and convince ourselves that tomorrow will be different. But what happens when the past refuses to stay buried? What happens when the two men who shaped your life stand in the same room, and the air becomes thick with secrets you thought were safely locked away? This is the story of one night that changed everything. One party where I learned that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Before we begin this incredible story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're listening to this story from. Your support means the world to us. The invitation arrived 3 weeks before New Year's Eve. It was one of those heavy cream-colored envelopes with elegant script, the kind that wealthy people use to make you feel both honored and slightly inadequate. Catherine Patterson cordially invites you to her annual New Year's Eve celebration. Black tie, 9 o'clock, RSVP. I held it in my hands for a long time, sitting at my kitchen table in my modest apartment in Brooklyn. The afternoon light filtered through the window, catching the dust particles floating in the air. My cat, Oliver, rubbed against my legs, purring softly. I hadn't seen Catherine in almost 2 years, not since the divorce became final, and our mutual friends quietly chose sides. She had chosen mine. Bless her heart. But life gets busy, and friendships fade into occasional text messages and birthday wishes on social media. My first instinct was to decline. The thought of getting dressed up, taking the subway into Manhattan, walking into a room full of successful people with their perfect lives and their witty conversations made my stomach clench. At 42, I was supposed to have it all figured out. Instead, I was working as a freelance editor, living alone, and spending most Saturday nights watching old movies with Oliver as my only companion. But something made me pause. Maybe it was the desperate need for change. Maybe it was the therapist's voice in my head telling me I needed to put myself out there again. Or maybe it was simply the terrifying realization that another year was ending, and I had nothing to show for it except a growing collection of excuses for why I stayed home. I texted Catherine, "I would love to come. Thank you for thinking of me." Her response came immediately. "Oh, darling, I am so glad. It has been too long. Bring someone if you would like." I stared at those words. Bring someone. As if I had someone to bring. As if there was a person in my life who would squeeze my hand reassuringly as we walked into a room full of strangers. I set the phone down and didn't respond. The weeks passed quickly. Christmas came and went, in a blur of awkward family dinners and forced cheerfulness. My mother asked about my love life with that particular tone of concern that mothers reserve for their unmarried daughters over 40. My sister showed off photos of her children, their faces sticky with candy canes and hot chocolate. I smiled and nodded and felt like a ghost at my own family gathering. On the afternoon of New Year's Eve, I stood in front of my closet trying to remember the last time I had worn something that wasn't yoga pants or jeans. I pulled out a dark blue dress I had bought years ago for a work event. It still fit, thank goodness, though it hung differently on my body. Now, I was thinner than I used to be, not from exercise or healthy eating, but from stress and the kind of appetite loss that comes with prolonged sadness. I did my makeup carefully, covering the dark circles under my eyes, adding color to my pale cheeks. My hair, which I usually wore in a messy bun, was blown out straight. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw someone who was trying very hard to look like she had her life together. It would have to be enough. The taxi dropped me off in front of Catherine's building on the Upper East Side at exactly 9:15. I had timed it that way on purpose, late enough that I wouldn't be among the first to arrive, but not so late that my entrance would be noticed. The doorman, dressed in formal attire, greeted me with a professional smile and directed me to the penthouse elevator. As the elevator climbed, I felt my heart racing. My palms were sweating inside my clutch. I reminded myself to breathe. This was just a party. These were just people. I could leave whenever I wanted. No one was forcing me to be here. The elevator doors opened directly into Catherine's apartment, and I was immediately hit with a wall of sound and light. Music played from hidden speakers, something jazzy and sophisticated. People filled every corner of the massive space, their laughter and conversations creating a steady hum of noise. Champagne flowed freely. The smell of expensive perfume and catered food hung in the air. Catherine spotted me immediately and rushed over, her arms outstretched. She looked stunning in a silver dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. We hugged, and she held me at arm's length, examining me with concern. "You look beautiful," she said, though I could see the question in her eyes. "Are you okay?" "I am great." I lied. "This is amazing. Thank you so much for inviting me." She squeezed my hand. "I am so glad you came. Let me get you a drink. Come meet some people." She led me through the crowd, introducing me to faces I would never remember. A lawyer, a gallery owner, a woman who did something incomprehensible with cryptocurrency. They all smiled politely and asked what I did, and when I said I was an editor, their eyes glazed over slightly before they turned to more interesting conversations. I found myself drifting toward the windows, drawn to the view of the city sprawling below. Manhattan glittered like a jewelry box, millions of lights promising excitement and possibility. From up here, everything looked beautiful and orderly. You couldn't see the dirt or the struggle or the lonely people sitting in their apartments wondering why they bothered getting out of bed. I sipped my champagne, barely tasting it. The bubbles felt sharp against my tongue. Around me, people laughed and flirted and told stories about their exotic vacations and their brilliant children and their important jobs. I felt invisible, which was both comforting and devastating. That's when I saw David. He was standing across the room, near the bar, talking to a man I didn't recognize. My David, my ex-husband, the man I had loved with every fiber of my being for 15 years, the man who had promised me forever and then changed his mind. My breath caught in my throat. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Catherine hadn't mentioned he would be here. Why would he be here? We didn't share friends anymore. We didn't share anything anymore. He looked good. That was the thought that pierced through my shock. He looked healthy and happy and successful in his perfectly tailored suit. His hair had more gray in it than I remembered, but it suited him. He was laughing at something the other man said, his head thrown back, completely at ease. I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear through the floor. I wanted to rewind time to the moment I received that invitation and make a different choice. But I couldn't move. I stood there, frozen, watching him. And then, as if he could feel my stare, he turned and looked directly at me. Our eyes met across the crowded room. I saw recognition flash across his face, followed by something else. Surprise? Discomfort? I couldn't tell. The distance was too great and my vision was blurring with tears I refused to shed. He said something to the man next to him and started walking toward me. Each step he took felt like a countdown to something I wasn't ready for. My heart pounded so hard, I was sure everyone around me could hear it. "Sarah," he said when he reached me. His voice was exactly as I remembered it. Warm, familiar, painful. "David," I managed to respond. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, too high and tight. "I did not know you would be here," he said. "Catherine did not mention it." "She did not mention you either," I said. We stood there awkwardly, two people who had once known everything about each other, now strangers in formal clothes at a fancy party. The silence stretched between us, filled with 3 years of unsaid words and unresolved feelings. "You look well," he finally said. "So do you." More silence. Around us, the party continued, oblivious to the small tragedy playing out by the windows. "How have you been?" he asked. "Fine. Good. Busy with work. That is good. I am glad." The conversation was excruciating. We were saying nothing while meaning everything. I wanted to ask him if he was happy, if he regretted leaving, if he ever thought about me late at night when he couldn't sleep. But instead, I smiled politely and gripped my champagne glass like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to the ground. "I should probably mingle," I said, desperate to escape. "It was nice seeing you." "Wait," he said, touching my arm lightly. I pulled back instinctively, and hurt flashed across his face. "Sarah," I wanted to say, "I have thought about reaching out so many times." "But you didn't," I said quietly. "No, I didn't. I thought it would be easier for both of us if we just moved on." "And did you move on?" He looked at me for a long moment. "I am trying to," he said. Before I could respond, The man David had been talking to earlier approached us. He was younger than David, maybe in his mid-30s, with dark hair and an easy smile. He moved with confidence, the kind that comes from never having been truly hurt by life. "There you are," he said to David, touching his arm in a way that made my stomach drop. "I was wondering where you disappeared to." David's face did something complicated. He looked at me, then at the other man, then back at me. I could see him making a decision in real time. "Sarah," and he said carefully, "this is Marcus. Marcus, this is Sarah. We used to be married. Used to be." Those 3 words carved out whatever was left of my heart. Marcus extended his hand, and I shook it automatically. "It is so nice to meet you," he said warmly. "David has told me a lot about you." "Has he?" I said, my voice hollow. "All good things," Marcus assured me, missing the tension completely. "He seems genuinely kind," I thought, distantly. That somehow made it worse. The 3 of us stood there, forming an awkward triangle. I watched David and Marcus together, the way Marcus stood just slightly closer to David than a friend would, the way David's body angled toward him, the way they existed in each other's space with easy familiarity. And then it hit me with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't just a friend. This was David's partner. This was the reason. He had left me 3 years ago, though he had never admitted it. This was the truth he had been too afraid to speak. So instead, he had blamed our marriage, our communication, our fundamental incompatibility. I felt like I was drowning. "Excuse me," I said abruptly. "I need to use the restroom." I didn't wait for a response. I turned and pushed through the crowd, searching desperately for somewhere to hide. I found a hallway off the main room and followed it blindly until I reached a bathroom. I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, sliding down until I was sitting on the cold tile floor. The tears came then, hot and angry. I covered my mouth with my hand to muffle the sounds. I had cried so much over David. I thought I had no tears left, but seeing him with someone else, seeing him happy, seeing the life he had built without me, broke something open inside. My chest that I had worked so hard to seal shut. Time passed. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually, there was a soft knock on the door. "Sarah?" It was Catherine's voice. "Honey, are you okay?" I stood up slowly, my legs stiff. I looked at myself in the mirror. My makeup was ruined, black streaks of mascara running down my cheeks. My carefully straightened hair was a mess where I had run my hands through it. I looked exactly like what I was, a woman falling apart at a New Year's Eve party. I opened the door. Catherine took one look at me and pulled me into a tight hug. "I did not know he was bringing Marcus," she whispered. "I swear I did not know. I would have warned you." "It is okay," I said, even though it wasn't. "Come on," she said gently. "Let me fix your makeup. You do not have to go back out there if you do not want to. We can hide in my bedroom until midnight if you need to." But I shook my head. "No, I am not going to hide. I am not going to let him see me run away." So Catherine helped me repair my appearance, and I walked back out into that party with my head held high and my heart in pieces. I got another glass of champagne. I forced myself to talk to people. I laughed at jokes I didn't find funny. I became an expert at pretending I was fine. And across the room, I could feel David watching me. Every time I glanced his way, his eyes were on me. Marcus was talking to other guests, charming and social, but David stood slightly apart, his expression unreadable. As midnight approached, everyone gathered in the living room. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. I stood alone in a crowd of couples, watching them prepare to kiss their loved ones as the new year arrived. 7, 6, 5. I thought about all the New Year's Eves with David, all the midnight kisses, all the promises we made about the year ahead. 4, 3, 2, and then it was midnight, and everyone was cheering and kissing and celebrating, and I stood there feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my entire life. "Happy New Year," a voice said beside me. I turned to find a man I hadn't met before standing there. He looked to be in his early 50s, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He wasn't trying to kiss me or celebrate. He was just standing there, looking at me like he understood exactly what I was feeling. "Happy New Year," I replied. "That looks like the face of someone who is very ready for this year to be over," he said. Despite everything, I almost laughed. "You have no idea. I am Robert," he said, extending his hand. "And you look like you could use a friend right now." I shook his hand, grateful for his straightforward kindness. "I am Sarah, and you are absolutely right. That was how I met Robert, in the wreckage of my past, in the middle of a party where I didn't belong, at the exact moment when I thought I couldn't feel any lower. He stayed with me for the rest of the night, not pushing conversation, just being present. We talked about simple things, the food, the music, the ridiculously expensive art on Catherine's walls, and through it all, I could still feel David's eyes on me, but now there was someone standing beside me. Now I wasn't completely alone. It was a small thing, but in that moment, it felt like everything. As the party began to wind down and guests started leaving, Robert walked me to the elevator. "Thank you," I said, "for being kind to a stranger. Sometimes strangers are easier than people who know our whole story." He replied, "Less judgment, more possibility." The elevator arrived, and I stepped inside. As the doors began to close, I caught one final glimpse of David across the room. He was watching me leave, and the expression on his face was one I couldn't quite read. Regret, maybe, or relief, or something else entirely. The doors closed, and I descended back down to street level, back to my regular life, back to my small apartment and my cat, and my uncertain future. But something had shifted. The worst thing I could imagine had happened. I had seen David with someone else. I had survived it, and somehow, impossibly, I was still standing. The morning after the party, I woke up with a headache that had nothing to do with champagne. Oliver was sitting on my chest, staring at me with his green eyes, demanding breakfast. I pushed him gently aside and reached for my phone. 3 missed calls from Catherine and a text message asking if I was okay. I typed a quick response. "I am fine. Thank you for everything last night." But I wasn't fine. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the previous evening. David's face when he saw me, the way Marcus touched his arm, the careful distance David maintained when introducing us. "Used to be married." Those words echoed in my mind like a song I couldn't stop hearing. I got up and fed Oliver, then made coffee and sat at my kitchen table wrapped in my old bathrobe. Through the window, I could see my neighbors going about their Sunday morning routines. A woman walked her dog. A man carried groceries. Life continued as if nothing had changed, even though my entire world felt like it had shifted on its axis. My phone buzzed. Catherine again. "Can I come over? We need to talk." I hesitated, then agreed. She arrived an hour later with bagels and orange juice, taking one look at me and pulling me into a hug without saying a word. We sat on my small couch, Oliver immediately claiming Catherine's lap. She stroked his fur absently, waiting for me to speak first. "How long have you known?" I finally asked. "About Marcus." Catherine sighed deeply. "About 6 months. I ran into them at a restaurant in the village. David asked me not to tell you. He said you had both moved on, and there was no point in reopening old wounds. But we hadn't moved on," I said quietly. "At least I hadn't." "I know, honey." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "I am so sorry. I should have told you he was coming last night. I should have warned you." I shook my head. "It doesn't matter. I would have found out eventually. Better to know the truth than to keep living in my carefully constructed fantasy." Catherine looked at me carefully. "What fantasy?" "The one where David left because we grew apart. Because we wanted different things. Because marriage is hard and sometimes people just stop loving each other." I took a shaky breath. "It is easier to accept that than to accept that he left because he was never really mine to begin with. Sarah, that is not fair to yourself. You were married for 15 years. Those years were real. The love was real. Was it, though?" I stood up and walked to the window, my arms wrapped around myself, because now I am wondering if our entire marriage was just him trying to be someone he wasn't. If every time he touched me, he was thinking about someone else. If I was just a convenient cover for the life he thought he was supposed to live. "You don't know that," Catherine said firmly. "You are making assumptions." "Then tell me what really happened," I said, turning to face her. "You are his friend, too. You must know something." Catherine was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing her loyalties. Finally, she spoke. "David struggled with his identity for a long time. Years before he left you. He saw therapists. He tried to make it work. He did love you, Sarah. Maybe not in the way you needed, but he did love you. Just not enough to be honest with me. He was trying to protect you. I laughed bitterly. By lying. By letting me think I had done something wrong. By making me question everything about myself for 3 years. He was trying to protect himself too, Catherine said gently. Coming out is terrifying, especially for someone like David who grew up in a conservative family. His father still doesn't speak to him. This information landed like a stone in my stomach. I didn't know that. There is a lot you don't know. David made me promise not to tell you any of this. But after last night, I think you deserve the truth. So Catherine told me everything. About how David had struggled with his feelings since high school. About how he had dated women, including me, hoping that love would be enough to change who he was. About how he had met Marcus at a work conference 2 years before our divorce, and realized he couldn't keep pretending anymore. About how leaving me was the hardest thing he had ever done, but staying would have destroyed them both. I listened in silence, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Anger that he had lied, sadness for the years we both lost, sympathy for his struggle, and underneath it all, a deep grief for the man I thought I knew. Why didn't he just tell me? I asked when Catherine finished. Why did he let me think it was my fault? Because he was ashamed. Because he was scared. Because telling you the truth meant admitting it to himself. Catherine paused. He asked me once if I thought you would have understood, if you would have stayed friends. What did you tell him? That you would have tried. That you are a good person with a big heart, but that he had hurt you too deeply to expect anything from you. I sat back down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. I don't know what I would have done. If he had been honest from the beginning, maybe we could have figured it out together. Maybe we could have stayed friends. But finding out this way, seeing him happy with someone else while I have been alone and miserable, it feels like betrayal. It is betrayal, Catherine said simply. Even if his reasons were complicated, he still lied to you. You are allowed to be angry. I am angry. I laughed without humor. I am furious, but I am also tired of being angry. I am tired of carrying this around. I am tired of letting it define me. So what are you going to do? I don't know. I looked at Oliver, who had fallen asleep in Catherine's lap. Start living my life, I guess. Stop waiting for David to come back. Stop pretending that if I just fix myself enough, everything will go back to the way it was. Catherine smiled sadly. That sounds like a good plan. After she left, I spent the rest of the day cleaning my apartment. I scrubbed floors and washed windows and organized closets. I found things David had left behind. Small items I had hidden away because looking at them hurt too much. A book he had been reading. A coffee mug with a stupid joke on it. A photograph of us from our honeymoon. Young and hopeful and ignorant of what was coming. I put them all in a box and sealed it with tape. I wasn't ready to throw them away, but I was ready to stop looking at them every day. That night, I sat down at my laptop and did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I updated my profile on a dating app. I chose new photos. I wrote an honest bio. Nothing too revealing, just enough to suggest I was ready to try again. It felt strange and terrifying and oddly liberating. 2 days later, Robert texted me, the man from the party who had stood beside me at midnight. Hello, Sarah. This is Robert from Catherine's party. I hope you don't mind that I got your number from her. I was wondering if you would like to get coffee sometime. I stared at the message for a long time. My first instinct was to say no, to retreat back into my safe isolation, but something made me pause. Robert had been kind to me when I needed kindness. He had asked for nothing in return. Maybe coffee wouldn't hurt. I would like that, I typed back. When were you thinking? We met 3 days later at a small cafe in my neighborhood. Robert was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of him. I took a guess on your order, he said apologetically, but I can get you something else if you prefer. Black coffee is perfect, I said, sitting down across from him. Thank you. We talked easily, the way we had at the party. I learned that Robert was a high school history teacher who spent his summers traveling. He was divorced, like me, though his marriage had ended almost 10 years ago. He had 2 adult children who lived on the West Coast. He liked old movies and jazz music and cooking elaborate meals for friends. You seem like you have your life together, I said, only half joking. He laughed. I have had a lot of practice at being alone. The first few years after my divorce were rough. I did all the things you were supposed to do. Therapy, exercise, hobbies, dating. Most of it didn't help. What helped was time and accepting that some pain doesn't go away. You just learn to live with it. That is depressing, I said. Maybe. But it is also freeing. Once you stop expecting yourself to be completely healed, you can start focusing on just being okay. And okay is actually pretty good. I told him about David, about the party, about finding out the truth after 3 years of confusion. He listened without judgment, nodding occasionally, asking thoughtful questions. "Do you still love him?" he asked gently. I considered the question carefully. I love who I thought he was. I love the memories we made together. But the real David, the one who lied to me for 15 years, I don't know if I ever really knew that person. That must be hard to accept. It is. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup. But I am working on it. We talked for 2 hours. When we finally stood to leave, Robert walked me to the subway station. "I would like to see you again," he said. "If you are open to that. No pressure, no expectations. Just 2 people who enjoy each other's company." "I would like that too," I said. He smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached his eyes. "Good. I will text you." As I rode the subway home, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not happiness exactly, but something close to it. Hope, maybe. Or just the absence of constant sadness. Either way, it was progress. Over the next few weeks, Robert and I fell into an easy rhythm. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates. Dinners turned into long walks through the city. He introduced me to his favorite bookstore, a cramped little shop in the East Village with cats sleeping on the shelves. I showed him my favorite spot in Prospect Park, a hidden bench overlooking the lake. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give. When he held my hand for the first time, he asked permission first. When he kissed me goodnight after our 5th date, it was gentle and brief, giving me space to decide if I wanted more. I did want more. Slowly, carefully, I let Robert into my life. He met Oliver, who immediately loved him in the way cats love people who aren't trying too hard. He came to my apartment for dinner and complimented my cooking, even though we both knew it was mediocre at best. He told me stories about his students and his travels and his messy, complicated family, and I started to feel like myself again. Not the person I was before David, but someone new. Someone who had been broken and was learning how to be whole again in a different shape. But David still haunted the edges of my thoughts. I would see a man with similar hair on the street and my heart would skip. I would hear a song we used to love and feel that familiar ache. I would wake up from dreams where we were still married and lie in the dark, feeling lost and disoriented. Catherine kept me updated, even though I told her I didn't want to know. David and Marcus moved in together. David's father still refused to acknowledge their relationship. David asked about me sometimes, wanted to know if I was doing okay. "Tell him I am fine," I would say. And mostly, it was true. Then one evening in late January, my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in 3 years, but still recognized immediately. David. My hand shook as I answered. "Hello?" "Sarah." His voice cracked slightly. "I hope it is okay that I am calling. I know we haven't spoken since the party. What do you want, David?" I wanted to apologize. Properly apologize. Not just for the party, but for everything. For the way I ended things. For not being honest with you. For all of it. I sat down heavily on my couch. "Okay, I am listening. Can we meet? In person. I think I owe you that much. A real conversation. Not just a phone call." Every instinct told me to say no. To protect myself. To keep the distance I had worked so hard to create. But another part of me, the part that had loved this man for 15 years, needed closure. "When?" I asked. "Whenever you are ready. Tomorrow. This weekend. I can work around your schedule." "Tomorrow," I said quickly, before I could change my mind. 6 o'clock. The coffee shop on Court Street. "I will be there," he said. "Thank you, Sarah, for giving me this chance." After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. Oliver jumped into my lap and I stroked his fur mechanically, my mind racing. What was I doing? Why was I opening this door again? I texted Robert. "David wants to meet tomorrow to talk." I said yes. "I hope that is okay." His response came quickly. "Of course it is okay. You need closure. Just protect your heart. Call me after if you need to talk. I loved him a little bit more in that moment, for understanding, for not being threatened, for trusting me to handle my own past. That night, I barely slept. I rehearsed conversations in my head, imagining everything David might say and how I would respond. I practiced being calm and dignified. I practiced being angry and righteous. I practiced being indifferent and moved on. None of it felt right. The next day dragged by impossibly slowly. I tried to work but couldn't focus. I changed my outfit 4 times, finally settling on jeans and a simple sweater. Casual, confident, someone who had moved on with her life. I arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early and immediately regretted it. Now I had to sit here and wait, my anxiety building with each passing minute. I ordered tea I didn't want and sat at a table by the window, watching people walk by outside. David arrived exactly on time. Through the window, I saw him pause outside, taking a deep breath before entering. He looked nervous, which gave me a small sense of satisfaction. He ordered coffee and sat down across from me. For a moment, we just looked at each other. This man I had shared a life with, this stranger who had my memories trapped inside him. "Thank you for meeting me," he said. "Finally, you said you wanted to apologize." "I do." He wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. "Not drinking. Sarah, I have thought about what I would say to you for 3 years. I have rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times. But now that you are sitting here, all those words feel inadequate. Try anyway." He took a deep breath. "I am sorry for lying to you. I am sorry for wasting 15 years of your life. I am sorry for making you think any of it was your fault. I am sorry for not being brave enough to tell you the truth." "Why weren't you?" I asked. "Why couldn't you just be honest with me?" "Because I was ashamed. Because I was scared. Because admitting the truth to you meant admitting it to myself, and I wasn't ready to do that." He looked down at his coffee. "I thought if I loved you enough, if I tried hard enough, I could make myself be the person I was supposed to be, the person my family expected, the person society told me I should be. But you couldn't. No. And staying married to you, pretending everything was fine, it was destroying both of us. You just didn't know it yet. So you left, without explanation, without giving me any closure. You let me spend 3 years thinking I had failed somehow. I know, and I will regret that for the rest of my life." He looked up at me, his eyes red. "You deserved better than that. You deserved honesty and kindness and a real explanation. I gave you none of those things because I was a coward." The words I had waited 3 years to hear, but hearing them didn't feel the way I thought it would. There was no satisfaction, no sense of vindication, just sadness for everything we had both lost. "Are you happy now?" I asked quietly. "With Marcus?" "Yes," he said simply. "I am. For the first time in my life, I feel like I can breathe, like I am not constantly pretending to be someone I am not." His voice dropped. "I wish I could have figured this out before I hurt you, but I can't change the past." "No, you can't." We sat in silence. Around us, the coffee shop buzzed with life. Students studying, couples talking, friends laughing. The world kept turning, indifferent to our small tragedy. "I am seeing someone," I said finally. "His name is Robert. He is kind and patient and honest. Everything you weren't." David flinched but nodded. "I am glad. You deserve to be happy. So do you. And despite everything, I meant it. I was angry and hurt, and would probably carry this wound for the rest of my life. But I didn't want David to be miserable. I just wanted him to be far away from me, living his authentic life, leaving me free to build mine. Can we be friends?" he asked quietly. "Someday? I don't know. Maybe. But not now. I need more time. I understand." We talked for another hour, filling in the gaps of the last 3 years. He told me about coming out to his family, about his father's rejection, about building a life with Marcus. I told him about therapy, about the dating app disasters, about Catherine's unwavering support, and Oliver's continued reign over my apartment. It was strange and painful and oddly healing, like lancing a wound that had been infected for too long. When we finally stood to leave, David hesitated, then pulled me into a brief hug. I stiffened but didn't pull away. "Thank you," he whispered. For meeting me. For listening. For being the better person. I am not being the better person, I said, stepping back. I am just trying to move on with my life. You should do the same. Outside, we went in opposite directions. I walked to the subway, my mind quiet for the first time in weeks. The conversation hadn't given me everything I needed, but it had given me something. Permission, maybe, to stop waiting for him to come back. Confirmation that leaving wasn't about me. A chance to finally close this chapter. I texted Robert, I am okay. Can I come over? His response was immediate. Always. Spring came to New York slowly. That year, as if unsure of its welcome, the trees in Prospect Park budded tentatively, and the air lost its sharp winter bite. I found myself walking more, spending less time hidden in my apartment. Robert and I had settled into something comfortable and real. Not the overwhelming passion I had felt with David in the beginning, but something steadier. Something that felt like it might actually last. We were having dinner at his apartment on a Friday evening in March when my phone rang. Catherine's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but something about the late hour made me pick up. Sarah. Her voice was tight with emotion. I need to tell you something before you hear it from someone else. My stomach dropped. What happened? David and Marcus are getting married. They are having an engagement party next weekend. A big one. Everyone we know is invited. I set down my wine glass carefully, aware that Robert was watching me with concern. Okay, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Thank you for telling me. There is more, Catherine continued. Marcus doesn't know about you. Not really. David told him you were married briefly years ago, but he downplayed everything. Made it sound like it was a mutual decision to separate, like you both moved on easily. Why are you telling me this? Because Marcus has been asking questions. He wants to meet you. He thinks it would be nice if David's ex-wife could come to the engagement party, be part of their celebration. He has this idea that everyone can be friends. I laughed bitterly. That is ridiculous. I know. But David doesn't know how to say no without explaining why. And he doesn't want to tell Marcus the truth about how things really ended between you two. So he wants me to come to this party and pretend everything is fine. Pretend that his marriage to Marcus is not built on the ruins of 15 years of my life. I don't think he expects you to come. I think he is hoping you will say no and he can tell Marcus you were busy. But I wanted you to know what is happening. Catherine paused. You deserve to decide how you want to handle this. After I hung up, Robert reached across the table and took my hand. What do you need? He asked simply. I need to think. I spent the weekend in turmoil. Part of me wanted to ignore the whole thing, to pretend I had never received the invitation that arrived in my mailbox on Monday. Another part of me was furiously angry. How dare David try to erase our history? How dare he present our marriage as some brief, insignificant chapter in his life story? But there was a third part of me, quieter but more insistent, that wanted to go to that party, that wanted to look Marcus in the eye and let him see the woman David had left behind, that wanted David to feel uncomfortable, to face the consequences of his lies. I called Catherine on Tuesday. I am going to the party, I told her. Sarah, are you sure that is a good idea? Probably not. But I am tired of hiding. I am tired of being the secret David wants to keep buried, if Marcus wants to. Meet me. Then he should meet the real me, not the sanitized version David has created. What are you planning to do? I don't know yet, but I deserve to be in that room. I was part of David's life for 15 years. I don't just disappear because it is convenient for him. Catherine was quiet for a moment. Okay, but please be careful. Don't do something you will regret. The engagement party was being held at a restaurant in Chelsea. The kind of trendy place with exposed brick and Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling. I spent an hour getting ready, choosing a dress that made me feel powerful. Red, form-fitting, impossible to ignore. I did my makeup carefully, my hands steady with purpose. Robert offered to come with me, but I said no. This was something I needed to do alone. I arrived fashionably late, walking into the restaurant with my head high. The party was already in full swing, people clustered in groups with cocktails, laughter filling the air. I scanned the room and found David almost immediately. He was standing near the bar with Marcus, both of them greeting guests. They looked happy, radiant even. Marcus's hand resting comfortably on David's back. David saw me, and the color drained from his face. He said something to Marcus and started walking toward me, but I moved past him, heading straight for the happy couple. "You must be Marcus," I said brightly, extending my hand. "I am Sarah, David's ex-wife." Marcus's face lit up with genuine pleasure. "Oh my goodness, Sarah, I am so glad you could make it. David said you probably would not be able to come." "I wouldn't miss it," I said, smiling. "It is not every day you get to celebrate your ex-husband finding true love." David had reached us by then, his expression carefully neutral. "Sarah," he said quietly, "this is a surprise." "Is it?" I turned to him, still smiling. "Marcus said he wanted to meet me. I thought it would be rude not to come." "Of course," Marcus said warmly, oblivious to the tension. "I have been wanting to meet you for ages. David has told me so much about you." "Has he?" I looked at David, challenge in my eyes. "What exactly has he told you?" Marcus laughed. "That you were high. School sweethearts who got married too young. That you both realized you wanted different things and decided to separate. Very mature. Very modern. I think it is wonderful that you two can still be friendly. High school sweethearts," I repeated slowly. "That is an interesting way to describe it." David's jaw tightened. "Sarah, can I talk to you for a moment? Privately?" "Actually," I said, my voice still light and pleasant, "I think Marcus deserves to hear the real story. Don't you think honesty is important in a relationship?" "Sarah, please," David said quietly, a warning in his tone. But I was past caring about his comfort. We were together for 15 years. Marcus. Not a brief teenage romance. We built a life together. A home. We talked about having children. We were planning to grow old together. Marcus looked between us, confusion replacing his cheerful expression. 15 years. "David, you said it was only a few years." David's face had gone pale. "It was complicated," he said weakly. "Complicated," I echoed. "That is one word for it. Another word might be dishonest." I turned back to Marcus, my anger sharpening my words. "Did he tell you why we really separated? Did he tell you that he left me with no explanation? That I spent 3 years thinking I had failed somehow?" "Sarah, stop," David said, his voice harder now. But I couldn't stop. The words were pouring out of me. 3 years of pain and anger finally finding their target. "Did he tell you that he let me believe our marriage ended because of something I did wrong? That he was too much of a coward to tell me the truth?" "What truth?" Marcus asked, his voice small. People around us had started to notice the scene. Conversations were quieting, heads turning our way. Catherine appeared at my elbow, her hand on my arm. "Honey, let's go outside," she said gently. "No," I said, shaking her off. "I am tired of being the secret. I am tired of being erased." I looked at Marcus, and suddenly the anger drained out of me, replaced by something sadder. "He never told you about me, did he?" "Not really, because acknowledging me means acknowledging that he spent 15 years lying. To me, to himself, to everyone." "I was trying to protect you," David said, his voice breaking. "No," I said quietly. "You were trying to protect yourself, just like you always do." The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone was staring now. Marcus looked like he might be sick. David's eyes were filled with tears, and I stood there, feeling hollow and exhausted. "I shouldn't have come," I said finally. "I thought I wanted this, but I don't. I don't want to hurt you, Marcus. You seem like a good person, but David lies. He lies to protect himself, and he will let you believe whatever version of the truth is most convenient for him. That is not fair," David said. "Isn't it?" I looked at him one last time. "You told me you loved me for 15 years. You promised me forever. And then you left without explanation and rewrote our entire history to make yourself feel better about it. So tell me, David, what part of that is fair?" I turned and walked out of the restaurant, leaving chaos in my wake. Catherine followed me, catching up as I reached the sidewalk. I was shaking, adrenaline coursing through my body. "That was intense," Catherine said carefully. "I know." I wrapped my arms around myself. I know I shouldn't have done that. But I am so tired of being the understanding one, the one who quietly accepts everything, the one who disappears so everyone else can be comfortable. "You have every right to be angry," Catherine said. But honey, that might have burned some bridges you can't rebuild. Good, I said. Maybe I don't want to rebuild them. I went home and cried for 3 hours. Not sad tears, but angry ones, frustrated ones. Tears that had been building for 3 years and finally found their release. Oliver sat on my lap the entire time, purring, steadily, his simple presence the only comfort I needed. Robert called twice, but I didn't answer. I needed to sit with what I had done, to process the magnitude of it. I had wanted to hurt David, and I had succeeded, but I had also hurt Marcus, an innocent person who had done nothing wrong except fall in love with the wrong man's version of himself. The next morning, my phone was full of messages, some from mutual friends, asking if I was okay, some from people who had been at the party, offering support or criticism in equal measure, but nothing from David. There was, however, a long message from Marcus. Sarah, I don't know what to say except that I am sorry. Sorry for being so naive. Sorry for pushing David to invite you. Sorry for whatever pain my relationship with David has caused you. He told me everything last night. The real story, not the edited version. I understand now why you were so angry. I would be angry too. I don't know if this helps, but I didn't know. He never told me how serious your marriage was, or how badly he handled the separation. I thought I was just another chapter in his life, not the reason a previous chapter ended so poorly. I don't expect you to forgive either of us, but I wanted you to know that I see you now. I see what you lost, and what he took from you. That matters, even if it doesn't change anything. I read the message 3 times, feeling something shift inside me. Marcus's words were kind and genuine, acknowledging my pain without making excuses for David. It was more than David had ever given me. I typed a response. Thank you for reaching out. I am sorry for making a scene at your engagement party. That was not fair to you. You seem like a good person, Marcus. I hope David is honest with you from now on. You both deserve that. His response came quickly. The engagement is off, at least for now. We have a lot to talk about, but thank you for your kindness. I hope you find happiness, Sarah. Real happiness. I stared at those words. The engagement is off. I had destroyed David's relationship. The one thing he had claimed made him truly happy. I had wanted to hurt him, and I had succeeded beyond my wildest expectations. But instead of satisfaction, I felt empty. Catherine called that afternoon. Have you heard? She asked without preamble. About the engagement? Yes. Marcus texted me. How do you feel about it? I don't know. Guilty, maybe. I didn't mean to ruin their relationship. Sarah, you didn't ruin anything. David did that all by himself. You just forced him to face the consequences of his dishonesty. But Marcus didn't deserve to be hurt like that. No, he didn't. But he deserved to know the truth. Would you really want him to marry David without knowing what kind of person he is? I thought about that. David isn't a bad person, I said slowly. He is just a coward, and cowards hurt people without meaning to. That doesn't make the hurt any less real. No, it doesn't. Over the next few days, the story of what happened at the engagement party spread through our social circle like wildfire. I became the woman scorned, the bitter ex-wife who couldn't let go. Some people defended me, saying David had it coming. Others said I was cruel and vindictive, that I had no right to destroy his happiness just because I was miserable. I stopped reading the messages. I stopped caring what people thought. I had spent 3 years trying to be the bigger person, trying to move on gracefully, trying to protect David's reputation, even as he rewrote our history. I was done with that version of myself. Robert finally came over 4 days after the party. I had been avoiding him, ashamed of what I had done, afraid he would see me differently now. But he just pulled me into a hug and held me while I cried. I ruined everything, I said into his shoulder. I let my anger control me and I ruined everything. No, he said firmly. You finally stood up for yourself. You finally said all the things you needed to say. Was it messy? Yes. Was it public? Yes. But you were honest. And sometimes honesty is ugly. Marcus and David broke off their engagement because of me. Robert pulled back and looked at me seriously. Their engagement ended because David lied. Because he tried to erase 15 years of your life to make himself look better. That is on him, not on you. But I could have handled it better. I could have been mature about it. Maybe, but you are human, and humans are not always mature when they are in pain. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. I am not going to judge you for finally losing control after 3 years of holding everything in. You should, I said. What I did was wrong. What David did was wrong, Robert corrected. What you did was react to 3 years of injustice. There is a difference. We sat on my couch, Oliver between us, and I told him everything. Every word I had said at the party, every angry thought that had led me there, every moment of regret since. He listened without interruption, without judgment, just present and supportive. What do you want to do now? He asked when I finished. I want to let it go, I said. I want to stop carrying David around with me everywhere. I want to move forward with my life and leave all of this behind. Then do that. It is not that simple. It is exactly that simple, Robert said. You choose to let go. You choose to stop letting him take up space in your head. You choose to build a life that has nothing to do with him. I looked at this man who had shown me nothing but patience and kindness, who had supported me through my worst moments without asking for anything in return, who saw me at my ugliest and didn't run away. Thank you, I said quietly, for not giving up on me. I am not going anywhere, he said. You are stuck with me. For the first time in days, I smiled. But that night, alone in my bed, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the scene at the party, seeing Marcus's hurt face, hearing David's broken voice. I had wanted vindication, but all I felt was tired. Tired of anger, tired of pain, tired of letting my past define my present. My phone buzzed with a text message. David, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but can we talk? Please. I should have ignored it, should have blocked his number and moved on with my life. But curiosity won out. What could we possibly have left to say to each other? I typed back. I want to apologize. Really apologize. Not just for the engagement party, but for everything. You were right about all of it. I was a coward and you deserved better. You had 3 years to apologize properly. I know, and I wasted them. Please, my Sarah, one more conversation. After that, I will leave you alone forever if that is what you want. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to say no, to protect myself from more pain, but another part of me recognized that this might be my last chance for real closure, the kind that came from both people finally being completely honest. Fine, I typed. Tomorrow. The same coffee shop. Noon. I will be there. Thank you. I put my phone down and stared at the ceiling, wondering what I was getting myself into and whether I would ever truly be free of David Thompson. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, a deliberate choice this time. I wanted to be settled, composed, in control when David walked through that door. I ordered my usual tea, and sat at the same table we had used months ago, when he had first apologized. It felt like a lifetime ago. When David entered, I barely recognized him. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair uncombed. This wasn't the polished, confident man I had seen at the engagement party. This was someone falling apart. He sat down across from me without ordering anything, his hands clasped, tightly on the table. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. You have 20 minutes, I replied, glancing at my watch. Say what you need to say. He took a deep breath. You were right. About everything. I was a coward. I lied to you, to Marcus, to myself. I spent years building a life on dishonesty because I was too afraid to face the truth. I have heard this before, David. I know, but this time I really understand it. Marcus left me. Not just postponed the engagement, but actually left. He said he can't be with someone who lies so easily, who rewrites history to make himself comfortable. He said he deserves better than that, and he does. I said simply, so did you. David's voice cracked. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. You deserved honesty from the beginning. You deserved a partner who could be himself with you. You deserved closure and explanation and kindness. I gave you none of those things. No, you didn't. I told myself I was protecting you by not explaining, that it would be easier for you to move on if you thought it was just a normal breakup. But I was really protecting myself. I didn't want to face your pain. I didn't want to see what my dishonesty had cost you. A young couple entered the coffee shop, laughing together, ordering complicated drinks. Their joy felt intrusive, out of place in the heavy atmosphere at our table. "What do you want from me, David?" I asked, suddenly exhausted. "Do you want forgiveness? Because I am not sure I can give you that. Do you want me to feel sorry for you? Because honestly, I don't. You made your choices. Now you have to live with them. I don't want anything from you," he said. "I just wanted you to know that you were right to be angry, that everything you said at the party was true. I did erase our history. I did lie to Marcus about us. I did take the easy way out at every turn. Okay? I acknowledge that you are acknowledging it. Does that change anything?" He shook his head slowly. "No, I suppose it doesn't." We sat in silence. Outside, life continued. People walked dogs, pushed strollers, hurried to appointments. The world didn't stop for our small tragedy. "Can I ask you something?" David said finally. "Do you hate me?" I considered the question carefully. "No," I said honestly. "I did for a while. But hate takes too much energy. Now I just feel sad. Sad for the time we wasted. Sad that you couldn't be honest. Sad that we both lost so much. Do you think you will ever be able to forgive me?" "I don't know. Maybe someday. But not today. And not because you asked for it. That is fair." He looked down at his hands. "I am going to therapy. Real therapy this time. Not just someone telling me what I want to hear. I need to figure out why I lie so easily. Why I hurt people to protect myself. Good. You should do that." Marcus said something before he left. He said that I don't actually love people. I just love the idea of them. That I create versions of people in my head and relate to those versions instead of the real humans in front of me. Was, he right? David looked at me with surprising clarity. "Yes, I think he was. I loved the idea of being married to you. I loved the stability and the normalcy and what it said about me to the world. But I never really saw you as a whole person with your own needs and dreams. I just saw you as part of my story." The honesty was startling and painful, but also somehow freeing. "Thank you for finally telling me the truth," I said quietly. "It doesn't fix anything. No, but it helps me understand that none of it was really about me. You would have done this to anyone you married, because the problem was never me. It was always you. You are right." He wiped at his eyes quickly. "I have to figure out how to be a better person before I can be in any relationship. Marcus deserves that. You deserve that." We talked for another hour, but the tone had shifted. There was less anger, less defensiveness. Just two people who had once loved each other trying to understand how everything went so wrong. David told me about his therapy sessions, about confronting his family, about learning to be honest even when it was uncomfortable. I told him about Robert, about starting to build a life that felt authentic to me. When we finally stood to leave, there was a strange sense of peace between us. Not friendship, not yet, maybe never, but something closer to understanding. "I hope you find what you are looking for," I said as we walked to the door. "I hope you already have," he replied. Outside, we stood awkwardly for a moment before going our separate ways. I watched him walk down the street, shoulders hunched, carrying the weight of his own choices, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel angry watching him go. I just felt relieved that he was no longer my responsibility. I texted Robert, "It went okay. I am heading home." His response was immediate. "Want company?" "Always." When Robert arrived an hour later, I told him everything. He listened carefully, asking questions when things weren't clear. "How do you feel?" he asked when I finished. "Lighter," I said, surprised by my own answer. "Like I finally closed a door that has been stuck open for years." "That is good." "Is it, though? I shouldn't feel good about David losing Marcus. That makes me a terrible person." Robert shook his head. "You feel good about getting closure. That is different. David losing Marcus is a consequence of his own actions, not your feelings." I sat with that for a moment. "You are probably right. I am definitely right," he said with a small smile. "Now what do you want to do? We can talk more if you need to, or we can watch a movie and pretend this whole conversation never happened." "Movie," I said immediately. "Definitely movie." We spent the evening curled up on my couch, Oliver sprawled across both our laps, watching an old romantic comedy that required no emotional investment. Robert's arm was around me, solid and reassuring. This, I thought, is what partnership should feel like. Easy, comfortable, honest. Over the next few weeks, something shifted. Inside me, I stopped checking David's social media. I stopped asking Catherine for updates about him. I stopped carrying the weight of our failed marriage everywhere I went. It was still part of my story, but it no longer defined my entire narrative. Robert and I grew closer. He met my sister and her family. I met his children when they visited from California. We talked about future plans, about traveling together, about what we both wanted from life. Nothing was rushed or forced. We were two adults building something real at our own pace. Then one evening in April, Catherine called with news. David and Marcus are trying again, she said. They have been in couples therapy. Marcus set some clear boundaries about honesty, and David has been working really hard to respect them. How do you feel about that? I asked her. I think it is good. They both seem committed to doing better this time. Catherine paused. How do you feel about it? I thought about it carefully. I feel okay. I hope they make it work. I really do. Everyone deserves a chance at happiness. Even David. That is very mature of you. I laughed. Is it? Or am I just tired of being angry? Maybe both. Maybe that is what maturity is. After we hung up, I realized she was right. I had spent so much energy on anger and pain and resentment. It had consumed me, defined me, limited me. Letting it go felt like setting down a heavy bag I had been carrying for miles. Robert noticed the change in me. You seem different lately, he observed one evening. Happier. I am, I said. I think I finally figured out that David's story and my story don't have to be the same thing anymore. He gets to move forward with his life, and I get to move forward with mine. Those things can happen simultaneously without diminishing either one. That is very wise. I am not sure about wise, but it feels true. May turned into early summer. The city came alive with warmth and possibility. Robert and I spent weekends exploring neighborhoods we had never visited, trying restaurants we had never heard of, building memories that belonged only to us. I realized I was genuinely happy for the first time in years. Not the desperate, clinging happiness that comes from trying to convince yourself everything is fine, but the quiet, steady happiness that comes from living authentically. One Saturday morning, I was making breakfast when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it and found a message from Marcus. Hi, Sarah. I hope it is okay that I am reaching out. I wanted you to know that David and I are working things out. He's been completely honest with me about everything, including his feelings about your marriage and the divorce. I understand now what you went through, and I am truly sorry. I also wanted to thank you for confronting us at the party. It was painful, but it forced us both to face some hard truths. I think we needed that. I hope you are doing well and finding peace. I stared at the message for a long time, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Then I typed a response. Thank you for reaching out, Marcus. I appreciate your kindness. I am glad you and David are finding your way forward. Take care of yourself and make sure he treats you with the honesty you deserve. I am doing well. Really well, actually. I wish you both happiness. His response came quickly. That means a lot. Thank you. Robert came into the kitchen and wrapped his arms around me from behind. Everything okay? He asked, kissing the top of my head. Yes, I said, setting my phone down. Everything is actually okay. And I meant it. David was moving forward with Marcus. I was moving forward with Robert. We were all finding our own versions of happiness, messy and imperfect as they were. The past would always be there, a shadow that shaped us, but it no longer controlled us. That evening, Robert and I sat on my tiny balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Oliver sat between us, purring contentedly. I have been thinking, Robert said casually. My lease is up in August. I was wondering if you might want to consider looking for a place together, something bigger, with room for both of us. My heart skipped. Are you sure? That is a big step. I am sure, but only if you are ready. No pressure. I looked at this man who had appeared in my life at exactly the right moment, who had been patient while I healed, who had shown me what honest partnership looked like, who made me laugh and feel safe and believe in possibilities again. I am ready, I said. Let us find a place together. He smiled and pulled me close. Oliver meowed in protest at being squished between us, but neither of us moved. We sat there watching the light fade from the sky, planning our future, leaving the past where it belonged. David had his story. Marcus had his, and I had mine. They were separate now, distinct, no longer tangled together in painful knots. We had all been hurt, and we had all hurt others, but we were learning, growing, becoming better versions of ourselves, and somehow, impossibly, that was enough. 6 months later, I stood in the living room of the apartment Robert and I had chosen together, sunlight streaming through windows that faced east. Boxes were still stacked in corners, waiting to be unpacked, but the space already felt like home. Oliver had claimed the sunniest spot on the couch, surveying his new kingdom with approval. Robert came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Happy?" he asked. "Very," I said, leaning back against him. "This feels right." "It does," he agreed. We had found the apartment in Brooklyn, a third-floor walk-up with high ceilings and original hardwood floors. It was bigger than either of our previous places, with room for both of us to work and live without feeling cramped. The neighborhood was quiet, tree-lined, filled with young families and older couples walking their dogs. It felt peaceful in a way I hadn't realized I needed. My phone buzzed on the counter. Catherine's name appeared on the screen. "Lunch today?" she texted. "I have news. We met at our usual place, in a small Italian restaurant near her office." She was already seated when I arrived, practically bouncing with excitement. "Okay, what is going on?" I asked as I sat down. "2 things. First, I'm getting married." She held out her hand, showing off a simple diamond ring. "Catherine!" I grabbed her hand, examining the ring. "When did this happen?" "Last night. Daniel proposed at that little restaurant where we had our first date. It was perfect. I am so happy for you." I squeezed her hand. "You deserve this. Thank you. And second," she paused dramatically, "I want you to be my maid of honor." I felt tears spring to my eyes. "Really, really, you have been my best friend through everything. I cannot imagine doing this without you by my side." "Of course I will," I said, pulling her into a hug across the table. "I would be honored." We spent the next hour talking about wedding plans, color schemes, venue options. Catherine was glowing with happiness, and I felt genuinely joyful for her. There was no bitterness, no envy, just pure celebration of my friend's good fortune. As we were finishing our meal, Catherine's expression turned more serious. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. How are you really doing? With everything that happened with David?" I considered the question carefully. "I am doing well, really well, actually. I have stopped thinking about him constantly. Some days I don't think about him at all. That is good. Robert and I are talking about the future. Real future plans. Maybe getting married eventually. Maybe even thinking about what we want our lives to look like 5 years from now. That is wonderful, Sarah." Catherine reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You deserve to be happy. You deserve a partner who is honest with you. I know that now. It took me a long time to believe it, but I finally do." As I walked home after lunch, I reflected on how much had changed in less than a year. The woman who had walked into Catherine's New Year's Eve party had been broken, barely holding herself together. The woman walking through Brooklyn now was whole. Different than before, but whole. Robert was cooking dinner when I got home. Something complicated that involved multiple pots and a cookbook propped open on the counter. He looked up and smiled when I entered. "How was lunch?" "Good. Catherine is engaged. She wants me to be her maid of honor." "That is wonderful." He stirred something on the stove. "How do you feel about it?" "Happy for her. Excited to help plan a wedding." I moved to stand beside him, peering into the pot. "What are you making?" "Trying to make his grandmother's recipe for sauce. It might be a disaster. It smells amazing." We ate dinner on our small balcony, watching the neighborhood come alive with evening activity. A family walked past with their dog. Teenagers laughed on the corner. Somewhere nearby, someone was playing music. "I could get used to this," I said contentedly. "Good, because you are stuck with it." Robert took my hand. "I have been thinking about something." "What?" "Us. Our future." He paused, seeming nervous. "I know we have only been together less than a year. I know you are still healing from everything with David. but I want you to know that I am serious about this. About us. I am not going anywhere." I smiled, feeling warmth spread through my chest. "I know, and I am serious too. This is the healthiest relationship I have ever been in. You make me feel safe and seen and valued. That means everything to me." He squeezed my hand. "No rush on anything. I just wanted you to know where I stand. I appreciate that." As summer turned to fall, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. I took on more editing clients, building my freelance business into something sustainable. Robert started planning a research trip to Europe for the following summer and asked if I wanted to join him. We spent weekends exploring the city, cooking elaborate meals, hosting small dinner parties for friends. Then one October evening, my phone rang with a number I recognized but hadn't expected to see. David. I hesitated before answering, but curiosity won out. "Hello? Sarah." His voice was different, lighter somehow. "I hope it is okay that I am calling. I wanted to share some news with you." "What news?" "Marcus and I got married last weekend. It was small, just immediate family and a few close friends. But I wanted you to know." His voice grew softer. "I also wanted to tell you that in my vows, I promise to be honest. Always. Even when it is hard. Especially when it is hard." I felt a complicated emotion that wasn't quite happiness, but wasn't sadness either. "Congratulations, David. I mean that sincerely. Thank you." He paused. "I also wanted to say that I am sorry. Again, I know I have said it before, but I need you to know that I understand now what I put you through. The therapy has helped me see how destructive my dishonesty was, how much pain I caused by being too afraid to face the truth. I appreciate you saying that. You deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved a partner who could be authentic with you. I hope you have found that now." "I have," I said, glancing at Robert, who was reading on the couch with Oliver in his lap. "I really have. I am glad. Truly. You deserve to be happy, Sarah. So do you, David. I hope you and Marcus have a wonderful life together." After we hung up, I sat quietly for a moment, processing the conversation. Robert looked up from his book. "Everything okay?" "Yes," I said, surprised by how much I meant it. "David got married. He called to tell me. How do you feel about that?" "Happy for him, and relieved that we can both move forward now. Our story is really over. Not angry, not bitter, just over." Robert set his book aside and patted the seat next to him. "Come here." I curled up beside him, Oliver immediately relocating to my lap. We sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from being truly at ease with another person. In November, Catherine's wedding planning went into full swing. I helped her choose flowers, taste cakes, address invitations. Being part of her joy felt healing in ways I hadn't expected. Watching her prepare to marry someone who was honest and kind and devoted to her reminded me that good partnerships existed, that love didn't have to be complicated or painful. The wedding was beautiful. Catherine looked radiant. Daniel couldn't stop smiling, and their vows made everyone cry. I stood beside my best friend as she promised forever to someone who deserved her, and I felt nothing but pure happiness. At the reception, Robert and I danced together, swaying to slow music under string lights. Other couples moved around us, lost in their own worlds. I rested my head on Robert's shoulder and felt completely content. "I love you," he said quietly, the first time either of us had spoken those words. I pulled back to look at him, seeing warmth and honesty in his eyes. "I love you too," I said. We danced in silence, but everything had changed. The words hung between us, a promise and a beginning. As the evening wound down, Catherine pulled me aside. "You look happy," she said. "Really, genuinely happy." "I am," I told her. "For the first time in years, I actually am. You deserve it, Sarah. After everything you went through, you deserve this happiness. So do you." I hugged her tightly. "Thank you for never giving up on me. For sticking by me even when I was a mess. That is what best friends do," she said simply. Winter arrived with the first snow in early December. Robert and I decorated our apartment for the holidays, putting up a small tree that Oliver immediately tried to climb. We hosted a dinner party, our first in the new place, and filled the space with laughter and good food and warmth. On New Year's Eve, almost exactly 1 year after Catherine's party, where everything had fallen apart, Robert and I stayed home, We cooked a nice dinner, opened a bottle of wine, and curled up on the couch to watch the countdown on television. "This is perfect," I said as midnight approached. "I don't need a fancy party or crowds of people. This is exactly where I want to be." "Me too," Robert agreed. As the countdown began, I thought about the previous year, the pain and anger and confrontation, the slow healing and gradual acceptance, the rebuilding of my life into something authentic and true. It had been the hardest year of my life, but also the most transformative. 10, 9, 8. The television counted down. I thought about David and Marcus, hoping they were happy together, hoping David had learned to be honest, hoping Marcus was being treated with the respect he deserved. 7, 6, 5. I thought about Catherine and Daniel, newlyweds building their life together. 4, 3, 2. And I thought about myself and Robert, two people who had found each other at exactly the right time, who had built something real and honest and good. 1. "Happy New Year," Robert said, kissing me as fireworks exploded on the screen. "Happy New Year," I replied, and it was. It truly was. In that moment, I realized I had won, not by destroying David or making him suffer, not by getting revenge or proving I was right, but by choosing to let go, by choosing to build a life that made me happy instead of waiting for him to fix what he had broken, by choosing Robert and honesty and peace over anger and bitterness and pain. I had survived the worst thing I could imagine. I had faced my ex-husband at his engagement party. I had confronted the lies and the pain. I had fallen apart and put myself back together. And now, sitting in my own apartment with a man who loved me honestly, I was genuinely happy. David had his story, his marriage, his second chance, and I had mine. We were both moving forward, just in different directions. And for the first time since he had left me 3 years ago, I was completely okay with that. The past would always be part of my story. The 15 years with David had shaped me, taught me, and ultimately made me stronger. But they no longer define me. I was more than my failed marriage. I was more than the woman David had left behind. I was Sarah, editor, friend, partner, survivor, someone who had been broken and had chosen to heal, someone who had been betrayed and had chosen to trust again, someone who had lost everything and had built something better from the ruins. As Robert and I sat together watching the new year begin, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been painful, but I had made it through to the other side, and the view from here was beautiful.